Hello and welcome back to Pathfinder, the series in which I illustrate my friend Milena's children's book and let you take part in the working process. In the last episode, after a long struggle, I finally found the perfect style for our book, which will be versatile enough to adapt to the different pages of the book and which should appeal to the target audience at the same time. Today I want to make the next painting based on the last illustration from the last episode, and this time, however, we have a little challenge because today's painting has to be combined with text.
Hi, my name is Ellie and I'm a tattoo artist from Germany. I do content about tattoo, digital painting and other art forms here on my channel. Please consider subscribing and hit the little bell button, for I'm not a big full-time YouTuber and my posts will most likely be buried. Thank you so much for supporting the little channels.
In the very first episode of Pathfinder I made several sketches. These were just experiments to find a style which is now done. However, at the time I already drew pictures on the theme of Self-Centred, which is the theme of today's illustration. Therefore, I looked at the pictures of the first episode again and found great pleasure in the first illustration, as I did then. The floating boy with lights of his own self shining out of his heart is just right for today's illustration, and stylistically it doesn't fit badly with our last picture. So I'm taking this picture as a basis and rework it until it fits the style we decided on in the last episode, as well as leaving space for one or more blocks of text that need to be placed on this page. In Milena's first rough layout, about half of the page is text and the other half is illustration. I'll see if I can combine it that way or if we need to change something on this layout. The main difference between the current illustration and the base painting is the contrast. The base is soft and has neither deep black depths nor hard edges. We also have this floral texture in the background, and I don't want to clutter the whole book with flowers. But in today's painting we definitely need to do something with the background. Since the last picture was already very dominated by the color blue, I want to choose a different color today. Especially with the colors, I want a lot of variety to make the book colorful and vivid. Here I start to paint a new illustration inspired by the boy's picture. As always, I first make several sketches and try out different poses and compositions. Here I also already bring in the text in the sketches in the form of rough squares, playing with different layouts and ideas. When I decide on one of the sketches, I start looking for colors for the background. Since the boy shines out of his chest, I thought a slightly darker background was necessary. However, since the writing had to be legible and the background of this page had to blend into the background of the opposite page of the edge, I let the dark red fade into white at the border. I also added a little bit of blue because I thought a little more variation than in the last picture wouldn't hurt. After the rough color sketch was finished, I start to define the character more precisely and to draw in more details. Now, however, I am dissatisfied with my efforts again. Somehow I always have the old picture in mind and the current drawing just doesn't want to match it. So now I import the old picture and adapt it to the style of the basic painting. I'm also unhappy with the background. Although I wanted a contrast to the glow, this gloomy dark red is just too lifeless and it just doesn't want to create the mood I wanted to achieve. I think I will opt for a rich yellow instead. Quickly the background is colored and adjusted at the edge for the transition to the next page. Now changes are made here and there to the character itself to adapt the boy to the new style and generally bring him up to scratch. Here I worked on the colors, contrasts and also on the lighting conditions. The contours of our young lad here were still too hard for my liking, and so I softened the contrasts at the edges. I also added light highlights from other directions, reduced the intensity of shadows and fixed some anatomical problems on the arms.
You are probably wondering why the picture suddenly has this distinct yellowish tint. This was the moment when I finally upgraded my old Photoshop CS5 to Photoshop CC after all these years. However, I still have a few small technical things to adjust, like this weird yellow shade. I had set my computer to turn the light temperature of my screen yellow in the evening to protect my eyes. Also, the picture here was very yellow in general, so I didn't even notice the yellow tint when I was working at it. However, now I urgently need to remove this yellow tint as it interferes with the colors while I'm working.
For the background, I also wanted a nice theme. In the last picture we had these little small blue flowers, and although the background now is dominated by this glow of the boy's aura, it wouldn't hurt to add a few nice little stars to make everything more cheerful and childlike. In addition, stars go particularly well with the color yellow and can act as a placeholder between text blocks on pages dominated by text. Speaking of text, now we are already on the first text block. First I try out the classic placeholder text lorem ipsum. Whoever can translate this from Latin gets a biscuit. I try out different compositions with text blocks, but soon realized that I should already use the actual text of the book here to be able to actually assess how much space I need and where I can separate the text meaningfully in terms of content. Our page also needs its headline, which should stand out from the rest of the text. As a color accent, I decided to pick up the blue color of the shorts again. It's an old design trick to never let a color stand alone, but to pick it up again elsewhere, however subtly. Since the shorts are the only blue object, a headline with a similar hue could compensate for this imbalance. After a bit of trial and error, I decided to try a double page spread after all. Milena wanted a single page for this content, but I wanted to show her other possibilities and present a selection of layouts. Here I adjust the background by adding a bit of texture to the blank page. It would be a waste to leave the page completely white, even if there is only text there. I let the streaks of the light aura continue on the other side and create a pattern that picks up the colors of the illustration. Of course, I must not get too dark, too contrasty or too detailed here, so as not to distract from the text. But a few little stars can't hurt. Then I drag the text blocks over and play a bit with the composition. It makes sense to separate the text blocks at one point. That way we don't have too much text at once and we can separate the two blocks with the aforementioned stars, which I draw into the gap straight away.
After this recording, I did a little more layouting and finally finished 3 versions of the page. Now I want to send these to Milena and I'm curious what she thinks of them.
Well then, that's all for today. Until next time, I hope you are just as excited as I am about what's going to happen next. At this point, as always, I would like to thank my great patrons who make it possible for me to do other creative stuff besides my main job. My deepest gratitude, of course, goes to the top tier patrons, the Satanic Sushis of Sin, Zockhart, Medera, Wuschiges Etwas and Mrs. Hippo. You are the very best, and I say bye.